Very good morning and welcome to Athavan newspaper highlights. Today Thursday, 12th of May 2016. This is Edward Udayadas Devasakayam Pillai with the highlights of today's English newspapers. As usual, we have three newspapers for the highlights: Daily Mirror, Daily News and Ceylon Today. The main headline of the Daily Mirror says, AG files indictments on Venerable Uduve Dhammaloka Thera for violating PPA. The Attorney General has filed indictment in Colombo High Court yesterday Venerable Uduve Dhammaloka Thera over the charges of illegally detaining an elephant calf at the Alan Mathiniya Ramaya in January 2015. Another highlight says, VAT NBT challenged in Supreme Court. We may seek declaration that notices are void and no force or effect in law. Administrative decisions taken to collect such taxes on changed rates are amounting to abrogation of fiscal powers of Parliament. There is no law authorizing the minister or any other official to arbitrarily impose such additional taxes. A fundamental rights violation petition had been filed yesterday in the Supreme Court challenging the imposition of additional liabilities pertaining to multi-stage value-added tax and national building tax. Harin says real costs lower than estimate. Only 128 million rupees for bulletproof cars. The actual cost of the two vehicles of Prime Minister and the cost of repairs of residents and offices of some ministers were less than what was stated in the supplementary estimates, Minister Harin Fernando said yesterday. Udaya calls government black. The joint opposition yesterday requested the President, the Prime Minister and other government leaders to set an example by tightening their belts to revive the economy instead of instructing the people to do so. Secondly, let's move to Daily News. The main headline of the Daily News says, Panama Papers, authentication of Lankan names begins. Gathering details of addresses, offshore accounts. The Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank Intelligence Unit, the Exchange Control Department yesterday streamlined all its name-related authentication process prompted by the ICIJ's disclosure of the names of Sri Lankan nationals linked to the Panama Papers, sources said. Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake said a committee comprising top officials from his ministry, the Central Bank's Exchange Control Department and other Inland Revenue Department stated gathering details of those officers, their local registered addresses and the offshore companies revealed in the Panama paper leak. We are also looking forward to get the assistance of the US Financial Investigation Unit, which we did not integrate earlier, to unearth if there had been any illicit financial flows from the country, he said. Another highlight says, President leaves for anti-corruption summit in London. President Maithripala Sirisena left for London yesterday morning to participate in the anti-corruption summit 2016 to be held there. The president and the delegation left the country from the Bandaranaike International Airport. Basil's wife, daughter failed to answer summons again. Pushpa Rajapaksa and Teja Rajapaksa, wife and daughter of former Economic Development Minister Basil Rajapaksa, have evaded the Presidential Commission to investigate mass-scale corruption and financial malpractices twice despite summons issued by the Commission. They were summoned by the Commission as part of ongoing investigations into the misuse of planes and helicopters belonging to the Sri Lanka Air Force. Government wanting on good governance, GL. Professor GL Pires said that the government has failed to establish good governance within the country as pledged before the presidential and parliamentary elections. He said so addressing a media briefing organized by the joint opposition in Colombo yesterday. It is clear that the government has failed to maintain parliamentary democracy and the vote was taken up for passing a supplementary estimate, he said. Pires said that VAT was imposed without parliamentary approval. Finally, let's move to Ceylon Today. The main headline of the Ceylon Today says, Government begins probe into Panama Papers. 18 out of 65 to be examined first. Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake says inquiries have been opened into the disclosure of 18 Sri Lankans who had allegedly deposited money in offshore firms to evade taxes and conceal their assets as revealed by the Panama Papers scandal through the law firm Mossack Fonseca. Another highlight says, student struck dead by lightning. Bolt entered via cell phone. A 17-year-old schoolboy has been struck by a bolt of lightning while playing video games on his mobile cell phone on his bed at home in Kopyawatha, Kadawatha police said. The tragedy had struck immediately after a slight drizzle at the time, Kadawatha police said. Another highlight says, COPE chairman says, ministers shielding corrupt officials. COPE chairman and JVP MB Sunil Handunetti says it has become impossible to take action against corruption and other large-scale vices taking place at ministries as ministers themselves and other henchmen are engaged in such acts. He said that at some ministries, some engaged in corruption have been shielded by the ministers themselves. Presidential election 2015, 12,500 million rupees siphoned out of banks. Colombo Additional Magistrate Nishant Piris yesterday allowed the Special Investigation Unit of the Police Department to launch a detailed probe into the alleged withdrawal of a sum of 12,500 million rupees from several banks, which was then handed over to a few officials at Temple Trees during the last presidential election campaign. The Colombo Additional Magistrate made this order after officers of the Special Investigation Unit of the Police Department submitted a report to court yesterday. Police told court that by withdrawing a sum of 12,500 million rupees from several banks before placing the cash in the care of officials at Temple Trees between December 2014 and January 2015, Clause 5 of the Money Laundering Act of 2006 had been violated. With that, let's come to an end of today's paper highlights. We will come with more news tomorrow morning. Thanks for listening to Athavan Newspaper Highlights.